There's two big complaints I hear from painting contractors. One is I can't sell, right? Or two, I can't find any guys that want to work.
Yep.
Like that's literally your only job as a business owner is to find those two pieces, connect them together, and have enough profit.
100%.
If you can't do that, like go work at the DMV. Like you should not be an entrepreneur. Like that's literally the two things that you are solving, which is why you'll make a profit.
Jason Paris, what's up, homie?
Good. Great to be here, Tom.
Yeah, welcome to the fight. You're killing it in good old Minnesota.
Yep.
So in the
God's country.
God's country, what do you got? Like 10,000 lakes? Is that
that's 10,000? That's our saying. Yeah, we
slogan.
say 10,000, but I think it's more like 100,000. They undercounted that on the. But we like to sell ourselves a little short here. You know, it's like a sneaky secret. It's not all that bad, but we put Fargo movie out there.
Yep.
We make sure all of our bad weather gets televised, and we kind of like it being a little secret where people don't flock here.
That's right. You know, I'm from the Midwest, Chicago area, and I actually didn't spend a whole lot of time in Minnesota. I spent a ton of time in Wisconsin. Yep. But anyway, it's good to have you here, man. So for those that don't know you, who are you? What do you do?
Ooh, so I am but a mist in the wind. I am an ever-changing river, never the same thing twice. But the real answer, my name's Jason. And so most people know me for Paris Painting. My last name is Paris. It's a house painting company. Also a husband, been married for 11 years. I have 5 beautiful children, aged 9, 7, 5, 3, and 1. I volunteer a lot with the Painting Contractors Association. Mm-hmm. So I've been a volunteer director for the last 7, 8 years. I was fortunate enough to serve as the chair of the board for a couple of years, and now currently serve as the immediate past chair while my predecessor, Nick Slavic, who I think you know, serves as the current chair. My hobbies are, I love ultra running and ultra endurance events. And so that's what I do.
So you are crazy is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
okay. I'm like, I have that mental interest called being an entrepreneur. Right. And so I will always seek out those uncomfortable situations. And then recently I've gotten to the hobby of aviation and flying. And so I'm about halfway through getting my private pilot's license. And there's nothing I love more than getting out on a blue sky day and getting that unique perspective that is being up in the airplane.
That's how long you've been flying.
So I started in January, and then it's always a dicey thing of when you're going to get the good weather, especially in Minnesota, to get out there and fly. But I'm about 30 some hours into my PPL, and the average is probably 55 till you get your license, and we'll see where I land.
That's cool, man. I love it. Hopefully it's not a crash land. So there you go. That was me trying to be funny, everybody, and probably didn't work. But anyway, tell us a little bit about Paris Painting, man. When did it start? How'd you get into this?
Sure. So Paris Painting, we paint houses. We're a residential painting contractor. So we're not a commercial or a big wig industrial. We're just humble Midwest flyover country house painters. Started in 2012 officially, and I started in 2014 full-time. So it's kind of a side gig, part-time thing. Last year we did $10 million in revenue. We're sitting here about to turn over to May, tracking for $12 million in revenue. We added on a little roofing division, so that mostly captures the synergy of our client list when a hailstorm comes through. That'll probably hit around $3 million this year. So all in the Paris ecosystem is about 15. Most of that is done during the exterior season, which is, being from the Midwest, basically April through October, and then you lose half a month somewhere in between to weather. But yeah, that's the synopsis. We paint houses. We're really good at logistics, and it's a lot of organizational complexity, but we've scaled pretty well.
So 2012 was the start officially. So that was 12 years ago. Yep. So 10 years full-time. What were the first couple of years like? What did you have? Was this a side hustle? Were you doing something else? What's up?
Yep. Side hustle. So I graduated from the University of Minnesota with an econ degree. Okay. And so I was in Fortune 500 land, and I started out part-time. I eventually left that Fortune 500 company. Classic conversation that you have with your spouse saying, hey, should I follow my dreams or grind it out for the next 30 years? Yeah. And I had one of those amazing wives who said, follow your dream, follow your passion. You're working 8 hours a day at the corporate job. Realistically, you're probably doing 3-4 hours of productive work, but you come home drained every day, versus when you're an entrepreneur, you work 16, 20-hour days, but you are just jacked. and excited.
Yeah.
It's a very different feel when you're excited versus demoralized, even if it requires more work. So yeah, it was the first couple of years were just me learning every mistake and doing things wrong. But like any good entrepreneur, it's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's your ability to keep standing back up and slowly and painfully trudging forward.
Stubbornness is a beautiful quality for an entrepreneur. So
yeah,
just keep getting up. So you, how long were you at this before you hit $1 million? Let's start there.
So it was 5 years to get to my first $1 million. Okay. And that was, crying I can tell you, well, I would say the first 7 years, there was a moment every single year where I cried, and I could pull back the memory logs on every single one. And it's usually I was tired, I was cold or sunburned, and the clients were mad at me, and my employees were mad at me, and my bank account was mad at me. And I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And then you realize that it's not just about the outcome. It's about the passion. It's about the purpose. You have this irrational belief that pushes you through, and eventually you get to the other side. But it took 5 years to get to $1 million, and then 5 more years to get to 10. And that's kind of the nature of even just that journey of being an entrepreneur is you grind. And I think you've seen this with what you do. I've loved watching you, and you put in the work and you grind and grind, and it's more about the process than the outcome. And then, one day you get over the hump, and it's all rewarded.
What was the switch that was flipped for you that, the first 5 to $1 million, the second 5 to 10 million?
Yeah.
Right. Like what, did I get that right? First 5 years, $1 million. And then in another 5 years, you basically added 9 more million.
Right.
See, so I can math. Look at that.
It's like a logarithmic scale.
Thank God it was like the number 10, because that's easy to work with. But anyway, like what would you say was the biggest impact point for you?
A lot of it was lived experience, and there's a lot of things that intellectually, but until you live it, it's hard to have it really sit or hit you. So it wasn't because I learned how to work 10 times harder. It was because I learned how to empower the people around me. And I knew that for a long time, but until I had a company that was at the size where I could start to attract and really leverage top talent and still be able to pay my bills while not doing everything, that I could really tap into that theory. And the answer was I learned how to get out of the way.
Learned how to get out of the way. What was your first hire?
So my first hire were painters.
Painters.
So they were my college buddies, and, teaching them how to brush and roll. And then, I'm watching the Idaho painter to learn how to use a sprayer. And then I forget to get the water out of it. And so I'm like, is this normal? I'm like trying to play cool. Like, it's supposed to be watery. Yeah. Like, I didn't flush the water out from when it was clean. So those were the early days. My first overhead hire would have been a sales rep. And so I tried that twice, and I failed both times. And it wasn't just a sales rep. The first time I hired my best friend from high school, who had started a painting company, and I'm like, let's merge. Yeah. Let's merge. I'll buy your company. Yeah. I'll buy your ladders, and you'll come work, and we'll dominate. And that did not work the first year. He did not know how to really sell, and I did not know how to coach or lead.
Right. Yeah.
Second failure was my best friend from college. I'd say one of my best friends from college who had started a painting company. Right. Sounding familiar?
Yep.
Again, he came on board. We had a successful year, but we just didn't share the same value or the same vision for the company. Yeah. We had similar values, did not share the same vision for the company. So ultimately he decided to leave after the first year. Okay. So I'm pretty good at failing. I can do that over and over. Yeah. But eventually I get it right.
Okay.
And I learned. And then the third time I tried to hire basically an everyman, but it was a sales rep / project manager / CEO visionary. And he was a guy I lived with in college. We'd been good friends out of college as well. And then we, hit it off, and it was what we call super synergy from there on out.
Gotcha. So it's interesting. Obviously you hired the field workers first to produce, and then you hired, but you went right to sales and not like an office manager position or something.
Right. So okay. I'm an awkward guy. I'm an odd person. I'm an odd duck. And, my favorite day is I see very few people and I'm in front of the screens all day. And, that's just a personal preference. And a lot of people will ask me based off of the success we've had, my recommendations on what role they hire first. I say, whatever you get the least life doing and that you don't want to do. And for me, I didn't love doing sales. I also didn't love managing projects. But the last thing I did in Paris painting was the coordination, and I built the coordination team. And you think that's typically the first thing that a contractor gets out of,
right?
Is all that computer logistical work. But that was what I loved doing. That's what I held on to the longest.
What do you spend most of your time doing these days?
So I'm training. I love running. And so I'm planning on doing the Tahoe 200 in June. So I spend quite a bit of time training, and I'm pretty old, so it requires a lot of body maintenance.
How old are you?
I'm 37.
Oh, Jesus. Come on, man. Old.
Yeah. Dude, it's a battle. Every day is a battle, you know? You're either going forward or you're going backwards. So I just try to make sure I'm not going backwards.
Jesse Itzler's in his 50s, man. He's running ultras, so he doesn't see himself as old. Don't say you're old. You're going to self-fulfill that shit.
I hope I'm as fit as he is when he's 50.
Right.
I just know it's not going to happen without a lot of intentional effort.
Absolutely.
So right now, I would say I unabashedly spend a lot of time on hobbies. So there's nothing day to day, week to week, or month to month I do in Paris painting. Operate more from the board level on strategy, setting the annual budget with the management team. If there's any big hairy issues that our team can't handle, I can give my input and clearly lay out the ramifications if they don't solve that issue. But I like flying. I've been flying planes. I have 5 kids, like I've said. And then I do a lot of podcasts and speaking events and speaking at conferences. And that's how I spend most of my days.
So you've what's the word? Delegated, given ownership to roles in your company. Did that come naturally to you?
It did in a way, but that doesn't mitigate the ego trauma that comes with it. Right. So for me, it was pretty natural to empower others to take on roles. Because I never wanted it to be the Jason show. I never wanted the company to be an extension of myself. I always wanted to get us to a scale and an infrastructure size where we could start to empower a team to really be driving the company and not necessarily myself. That doesn't mitigate the challenges that come with doing that in practice. So kind of talked to you a little earlier about theory and lived experience. Living that out, I just say it's hard. It's hard for any entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, you have to have this irrational belief. You're very, very tough. You're good at everything. You have a high tolerance for pain. And then you got to get out of the way if you want your business to scale and thrive without you. And that is a hard thing to do.
You know, it's funny. I've in the past, and probably to be fair at times now, I'm very quick to delegate and give ownership of something. I'm better at this now, but in the past, I used to give that without the training. or sufficient,
high direction
or sufficient training. Like I'd go
straight to delegation.
And
situational leadership.
Absolutely. And that bit me in the tail several times. I think the last time I screwed that up was probably about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago. So anyway, now, so I've grown the fight to a point where, you know, we have a CEO that's running it. I have a coaching team and it's kicking ass. Everything's cool. Right. One of the biggest struggles for me when I first hired our CEO was for about the first year, I didn't know what my role was anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're used to being in the weeds every day. You're used to being in the thick of it. And work is kind of my hobby also. Like I love the game. I love competing with with ourselves the previous day before. So it actually took me about a year personally to kind of figure out, you know, what my lane was as the founder now, if you want to call it that. So I'm curious, what was it pretty good for you? I
would just shoot you straight. I think I'm in the middle of that right now.
Okay.
I think I'm in the middle of that journey and I'm kind of like a glorified mascot. That's the way I would say I am. But I've just seen this over and over. So we've got Paris Painting. We started a holdings company, all of holdings. Both those entities, I was crucial and necessary during the startup phase. No one else can do what I do. I'm a great startup guy.
Right.
But when you know you're successful as a startup guy, when you work yourself out of a job.
Yeah.
Now the organization goes on without you. And so I know that's a good end. It's an inevitable end. But I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
And I like hearing your story on that because it gives me some hope. Because you're not my therapist today, but you kind of are.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a little lost in what I should be doing now or next.
Well, I'll tell you what's funny, and certainly the Contractor Fight's different than a painting company or a remodeling company, right? It's a very, we put on events, we coach, we train, we do these things. It's very intimate with people. We get close to people. The biggest mistake I made is our CEO, his name is Neil. He is more than competent. Like he's been my right-hand guy for almost 20 years. Like we've been tied at the hip. In fact, I used to be one of his subcontractors. He was a really successful remodeling contractor, sold his business, and I was one of his painting subs, and he fired me like 3 times anyway. But anyway, so the trust factor, all that, we think alike, it's great, right? Yeah. However, what I realized is I kind of, the fight is, yes, it's a company, it's a business and stuff, but more than that, it's a movement. Yeah. And initially in that first year or so, I think I really wrongly stepped away too much from the culture part of it. Yeah. And being the mouthpiece for there's a different way to do business. You need to stop stealing from your family. Like, we have systems, we have processes in place. Like we all want a business that runs without us. Just to your point, you didn't want it to be the Jason show. And I'm like, I'm building this thing where Tom is always the face of it, with the fight. And I think there's a balance in there somewhere where I'm still fanatically involved in our culture, but not the day-to-day. I have very little to do with the day-to-day. So for me, I was in no man's land for like a year. Yeah. And then when I get no man's land, I'm bored. When I don't have a clear vision or a mission for myself, I'm really big on carry your water. Like we all need to carry our weight. So I had like a year where I didn't know if I was carrying my weight. Yeah. And that,
you start buying airplanes and it's a bad place to be.
Yeah. So I was miserable because what I realized is my superpower in the fight is expanding the movement. Sure. And giving people a vision of where they could be, calling BS on their stories that they're telling themselves, opening their eyes to what could be. Like, that's really my role. Yeah. And anything else, I pretty much screw it up. But it's been
great insight.
Yeah, it's been and it took some coaching and a lot of hard conversations with the team. But again, I'm such a team guy that I don't want to be that guy on the team that doesn't do his job. Yeah. And I had a year, a little more than a year, where I didn't know what my job was. But anyway, so you wrote, let me pull this up here real quick. One of the things when we asked you what you wanted to chat about, first thing you put was intentions versus goals. Yeah. What's that about?
Well, I love your ethos, what you guys do. And you start with the strong you. Mm-hmm. And one of the phrases I like is you cannot pour out from an empty cup. Mm-hmm. And you start with a strong you. And this is something that I've been passionate about, and I've had the opportunity to just share with other people, which is getting the foundation of even just your life set. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I was introduced to when I was 22 years old. I went on a 3-day silent retreat and started working through this framework of basically what is the foundation of your life. What does that look like? And how do you stay focused and committed to it? Mm-hmm. And so when I talk about intentions, there's a lot of actions that we do and a lot of goals that we set day to day. Mm-hmm. And a good thing to ask ourselves is, to what end, right? To what end are you setting and achieving this goal? Yeah. Right? So you may set a goal of finishing a race, right? Somebody wants to run their first marathon. Mm-hmm. It's like, great. Why? To what end? What does that ultimately achieve? And I think getting clear on that for each of your life areas is something that's what stops you from having those midlife crises. Right? That's what stops you from going in the wrong direction. And the compounding effect of life, when you can just steadily plod in the correct direction because you've done the hard work of setting your intentions, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And then you've got your intentions, you've got your goals, you've got your passions. And the way that I talk about passions with people is passions are the fuel towards your goals that align you to your intentions.
Say that again.
Your passions are the fuel that motivates you or pushes you towards your goals that align to your intentions.
Love it.
Right. So you'd say, why? Like, what is driving me to hit this goal? Right. Well, I want to move forward my intention, but when I wake up and I don't want to do it, what's the passion that is that fuel for me? Right. And so I have a passion in each of my 3 life domains. So we talked about can't pour from an empty cup. So you have your personal life.
Yep.
You have your family life. Then you have your world impact. Right. So you can't really serve your family well until you've served yourself. You've taken care of home base. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're not well physically, mentally, spiritually, good luck being there for your family.
Right. Yeah.
And if your family's in disarray, good luck having a big impact on the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so you kind of start and cascade from there. But go ahead.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is, when you take care of yourself, you're stronger for the family. And then what's interesting, and I had it backward for many years, meaning I put the business first, all in the name of providing for the people I love. Right. So the intentions were good. The order of operations was jacked up, because what I realized is that who I am, my mindsets, my habits, my health, all those different things, and what was going on under my roof at home, those things came with me wherever I went in my career, and they impact you. And, yes, the queen here, her goal is, she's like, when my man walks out the door, she's like, I want him to know he's encouraged. I want him to know that we have his back. You go out there and you conquer what you need to conquer. That person, your wife, your kids, whoever, they should be walking out the door feeling empowered every day, not carrying the stress of the bullshit that goes on at home if you don't dial that in. Yeah. And that's where, many years ago, burned a lot of things to the ground because I had it flipped. It's
kind of like it's almost a little bit of a jujitsu move, but one of the most selfish things you can do is not take care of yourself. Right? If you want to really serve your family, take care of yourself physically, so you can be there for them and have the energy. Take care of yourself mentally, so you're sharp and you can engage in activities. Take care of yourself spiritually, so that you're present and focused. And if you really want to have a big impact on your business, make sure you're taking care of your family first. Yeah. Right. And you think like, well, if I really cared about my business, I'd sacrifice my family. Like, no, that's going to crumble pretty. That's called a bing bong. That's a tip over.
I have a friend who is, how do I say this? I won't say the trade. I won't say where he lives. Because I don't want to embarrass him, because he's grossly overweight. Yeah. Okay.
Call it out. Spade is spade.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I'll speak more to that weight thing in a minute, which something I thought was kind of comical. But anyway, he runs I'll just say over, it's not 100 million and it's more than 20 million. Because again, I'm trying to not spell this out, right?
Don't call him out. Yep.
And,
or her.
Right. It's a him. But so got a pretty nice sized business. He spends a lot of time not having to be stuck in the business, has pretty free life, if you want to call it that. Yep. And I was sharing with him, I'm like, dude, your weight is actually holding back your business, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And imagine where your business would be if you took care of the you part of strong you. Right. Like, and he's like, yeah, I get it. My point is, like, you grew your next 9 million was in 5 years. If you had not been taking care of you, if you'd not been taking care of your home, right? Yeah. Maybe it would have been 3 million now, 4 million, right? Which is still, hey, solid business, but it's not where you are now. So I say that all the time, that your business is really only going to be as strong as you and your home life are.
Man, you said something, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that's kind of like this reality of just the world, the life is, a lot of life is about who we are, not necessarily what we do. Yeah. And there are no shortcuts to that. There's no shortcuts to who you are, because you form it every single moment, and every single decision, every single thought, every single action that forms who you are. And you can't shortcut that. You can shortcut some things like success. There's you could win the lottery and be very rich. It will not turn, it actually may make it harder for you to become the person of a wise financial steward. Right. That takes time and action and effort. Or like you could say, like, steroids are a shortcut, but there's no shortcut towards the discipline of the grind of loving the game or the craft. cheating or, prostitution, pornography. Those are all shortcuts, but you can never take a shortcut to who you are. That is formed over time.
Ouch. Drop the mic on that one, man. I love that.
Yeah.
So back to the weight thing. And then I have another couple things I want to touch on here. It's funny. I spoke at a PCA thing a few years ago, and I offended like half the room when I stood on stage. I said, I've known a lot of you guys for 15, 20 years, and y'all are getting fat. And it was funny. I was called a toxic male. I was called a bunch of things in the feedback, but I had about 20% of the people that night. There was a big Sherwin-Williams reception because they always do it right. And I had probably about a couple dozen people pull me aside, and they said, hey, that needed to be said. Thank you. And what's funny, it was guys that were all in shape and had their shit dialed in because they see it. They see it. Because when I see somebody that I've known in the industry for 20 years and their business is in the same damn spot it was when I knew them 20 years ago, they're just repeating the same year, but the only thing that's bigger is their waistline. And I'm like, dude, what? Like that's an example to me of working the wrong order. Because I know the work they're putting in and the grind they're putting into their business, and they keep repeating the same year. And it never expands.
And I don't want to assume people's intentions because, someone might have the intention of saying, hey, my physical life, I would like to, be a little overweight more and more every single year and, not be able to do the things that I want to do that are fun. And I would like to die early. And if that's what they want, like the actions align to it. And I'm like, more power to you. Most people won't say that out loud. Most people would say, no, I want to be able to do all the fun activities that I want to do. I want to be there and physically capable. And I'd like to be a good steward to my life and be able to pour out as long as I can. And there's this cognitive dissonance between actions and intentions. And that's part of the hard work of, really dialing in each of your life areas. What is it that you actually want, that you want written on your tombstone, where you'd say, yeah, every single day with my actions, am I getting closer or farther away from that? And that's really your barometer to say, are you going in the right direction or not?
You ever read James Clear?
Oh, it sounds familiar.
He wrote Atomic Habits.
Okay. Yeah. Classic.
I was following him back in, 2008 or 10 when he was just had this newsletter, this blog. He'd post Tuesdays and Thursdays, and he just thinks at a different level. He talks about every action that we take basically is a vote for who we want to be in the future. Yeah. I just love the way he puts that. And,
and if you put in the hard work of thinking, what do I want written on my tombstone? Right. What does this being category look like? That I'm never going to achieve. I'm always moving in the direction of. Then that will help motivate your current state decision-making because you have that in your mind. Right. So in your business, it may say like, here's what it's going to look like and feel like in 30, 40 years, not as a goal. So not a smart goal, but more undefined, categorically specific tombstone type stuff. You have that mental picture. I would review it every day. And then the decisions that you make just have a little more weight to them. Because a lot of the decisions you make day to day just don't feel that heavy. Right. Until you start to contrast them with, like you just said, are you moving closer, farther away? Is it a vote for or against this future state?
So what is, you mentioned discomfort earlier. What have ultra marathons taught you about business? Because is an ultra 50 or more or 100 or more?
An ultra is technically anything over a marathon.
So gotcha.
Anything over 26.2. So 50K is technically an ultra marathon. I've been doing the hundreds, and then I'm gonna plan on. We'll see if I finish a 200 or not, but I'm planning to do that.
And what's 100K? Is that what 200 and?
It's like a non-freedom unit. I don't know.
200 miles. I don't know.
No, 100K would be less. So it's like 60,
it's less. It's the other way. Okay, it's the other way.
So 50K would be like 30 some miles.
Kilograms are like double of pounds. That's right.
Yeah, these are like communist.
My bad.
Communist philosophies. I'm more of a freedom unit guy.
All right. So what have these ultras taught you about how they made you a better business owner?
So first of all, like I said, I have a sickness. It's called being an entrepreneur. I love seeking out these uncomfortable wayfinding, cutting edge situations where I don't have a clear path of success, but I'm going to make the best decisions with the information that come to me and try and get a good result. And that's a lot of what an ultra marathon is an adventure. It's more of an adventure than a performance. Right. And that's oftentimes what starting a business is like. Yeah. I would say this as a startup guy, right? You get out there, there's not a clear blueprint. You have a general idea. Like Lewis and Clark were great wayfinders. Yeah. Head west and map your way until you get to an ocean. Yeah. Nobody knows, what the dangers are, what the resources are, but you're going to just head that way and eventually hit an ocean. And that's kind of what running an ultra is like. That'd be lesson number one. Another big lesson is, and I think this is true in so many areas of life, it's not about how fast you can sprint, how quickly you can go. It's about how little you can slow down over the long run. And that's, the people that win these ultra marathons, they're not going very fast. They just don't slow down that much.
That is key. And I love that you shared that, because we live in a world where you open your phone, you go to Instagram, this and that. You're seeing the guy who started his business 3 months ago, that's flying private now, has a jet and 3 fucking Ferraris and this and that, and I'm just saying, like, sometimes the life of the entrepreneur on social media, people don't understand the grind that it took to get there, the ultra marathon of building their wealth, building their business. Yeah. It's, we live in that, I call it the microwave society, That dates me, but I remember when I used to have to cook popcorn on the stove, and then microwave popcorn came out, right? And you push a button and like, boom. Or I remember when our remote control, I remember not having remote controls. And then the first remote we had a wire attached to it that you plug into the TV and turn the channel, and so and then obviously you got a supercomputer in your hand that you ask a question that I used to have to ride a bike to the library and look in an encyclopedia to get. Yeah. And so I just think, these are blessings, but they're also curses I think in some ways, where it paints an unrealistic picture of what's required sometimes.
Well, I think so much of this conversation just keeps tying together. There's this saying, and I might get a little wrong, from John Wooden, but hard work and talent will get you to the top. Yeah. But character is what keeps you from falling. Right. And that character, there's no shortcut to it. It's formed every single day. And there's all these, technology has all these different levers, that's what innovation is. And you can do these things in a different way, but at your core, are you the character of a person that's going to be successful and maintain that success?
So we all have self-talk. We all tell ourselves stories. Yeah. I'm curious, and I'll ask you, and then I'll share a bit to give you a minute to think. Sure. So I'm curious, like, what stories have you struggled telling yourself that maybe have held you back through the years, if that makes sense? So for me, like, I rode the short bus for 2 years in grade school. I was in special ed. So I had this story that I told myself for decades that I was stupid. I couldn't learn things. And it came up, like, I had business partnerships where I was super in step, in tune with what needed to happen. But because I didn't trust myself to be smart, I would hold back. I wouldn't push for my viewpoint on some things, and I would just cave at the first sign of having to intellectually defend myself, if that makes sense. So I'm just curious. And it really, and once I really went toe to toe with that and made it my bitch, it was holding me back. And once I took that leash off of that and really learned to reframe that self-talk, it's just been an explosion since. I'm curious what that might look like for you, that you might have struggled with when it comes to that. Those stories you tell yourself.
That was a good example. I think the story would be that I'm not valued, I'm not appreciated, and that I'm not worthy. And those are really good attributes to have when you're trying to get off the ground. Yeah. Because you got this big chip on your shoulder. Yeah. And you're never satisfied. And it's like, okay, hello, success. Keep going. You never know when it's going to break. And it's kind of like an F you, I'll show you. Like, F you, I'll show you. Right. And you kind of make up slights along the way. And maybe somebody doesn't call you back, or a client doesn't book with you, or an employee leaves, and you're like, okay, I see how it is. You're going to regret that. Just watch what I can do. And that, I don't know if it holds you back until you start to have some success in life. Yeah. And then you still have this edge and this chip, and it's not very conducive to collaboration and synergy. And we talked about, once you move past yourself, now you're in a larger organization. So standing on my own 2 feet by saying, no, I'm appreciated. I am valuable. I forget what the third one I said was, but that's a journey of, there are things in life that are really productive at certain points because they get you out of these situations. And then at some point you got to do the work on yourself and get to be a healthy person again.
Yeah. Your third one was worthy.
Yeah. So feeling worthy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like I'm only worth so much success. We have a governor on our own success level, if you want to call it that. So
sure.
Yep. So early on, you said you were doing what, 2,200 projects a year, roughly, give or take?
Yeah. Yep,
okay.
Give or take.
And I don't know if I had hit record when we were chatting about this, but that's you perform with all subs, mostly subs.
Yeah, I'd say 90% or so subcontractors.
Would you say like 100 sub crews?
Probably at our peak weeks of the summer. There's probably over 100 crews we'll work with.
And let me just do my math here. You have a 7-month exterior season, right?
Yep.
If all goes well.
Yeah.
And you said about 2,000 of those are exteriors of the 2,200.
That sounds right.
So that's about 285 exteriors a month.
Yep.
That you're
banging by 4.33.
Divide by 4.33. See, look at you, man. So it's 66 a week on average. How many days are these jobs? Like 2-day jobs, 1-day jobs?
Yeah, I mean, anywhere from 1 to 4 days. So you probably have a standard deviation curve where most of them are going to fall in that 2 to 4 day window, and then the second standard deviation out, you'd have like 1 days to like maybe 5 to 7 days, and that's a rare job that gets done in a partial day, or a rare job that would go longer than a week. Right, so you're probably looking at a more complex interior repaint that has enamel work in multiple levels. If it's longer than that.
Yeah. What do you what can you share with people on how to build a kick-ass team of subs? A lot of people have a hard time with that. And you've obviously got a few reps under your belt when it comes to this.
Yep.
What comes to mind?
Yeah, you have to view yourself as a middleman. And I don't care if you're Sherwin-Williams selling paint and buying the paint cans from China. I don't care if you're Target buying jeans from Indonesia and selling them to suburban moms in Maple Grove, Minnesota. If you're going to be a middleman, you have to provide value in between the equation, where the product source and the consumer source don't just leap over you to each other. So with that mindset, a bad way to work with a subcontractor would be, I sold the job. Here's my manila envelope. Here you go, subcontractor. Here's an envelope. I want you to call the client, settle the options, pick the colors, schedule the wash, do the carpentry, do the initial walk around. If there's any issues, deal with it. Do the final walk around, collect the check and then bring it back to me.
Yeah.
I don't really know if you have that much of a value add in the equation. You did do the sale. It's hard to estimate paint jobs, exteriors correctly. You have the skill of sales, and you were able to do marketing, to whatever that is worth. So that's your limited value add. A really great way to work with a subcontractor is to say, here you go. Here's the location of the house. Here's what it looks like. Here's the price. Would you like to do this work? Great. You show up, the client has already been washed. The carpentry is already done. We've already picked out the colors. We've already picked out the options. The paint is there waiting for you on site. You show up, we'll have one of our project managers there. They'll walk around with you and the client, make sure everybody's on the same page. If you run into any issues, I'm not relying on you to have emotional intelligence to deal with conflict. Yeah. You smile and say, let me call Jonathan. Jonathan will come and deal with any issues mid-flight. We'll do the final walk around with the client. We'll collect the check. You get paid the moment that we finish our inspection, not when the client pays. That's how you do a value add to the equation. If I'm a subcontractor and I'm good at painting, but I'm not good at logistics, financial management, emotional intelligence, estimating, all those elements I listed, I can make a lot of money as a specialist in painting when I don't have to do all those other things.
Yeah, I mean, it's the person who loves making something look really nice. They like being outside or with the guys, the camaraderie. They just want to paint shit and go home and get paid, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So,
and that's been the story of our economy for the last, closing in on 100 years, basically since the end of World War II, is this idea of specialization.
Yeah.
And if you can start to specialize in your role, that's where you can really start to improve your lot in life.
So you're handing a project to a sub that's already washed, carpenter repairs are already done. And selections are made. They walk it with you and the homeowner.
Which is not easy to do.
No,
which is our competitive advantage in the market to say, yeah, here's how we do our business. Good luck competing. Like, it's really hard what we do, especially at scale. It's a lot of logistics that get involved, but that would point to our strengths as an organization.
I find it interesting that, I mean, you're doing what we say, 66 projects a week on average in an area where you have Mother Nature that has other plans.
Yeah. Even harder. Right.
Yeah.
Even harder. Yeah. Again, it's like, who would want to do this? And this is actually a pretty hard business to be successful at for good reason, which makes the barrier pretty low to have a lot of success. And so there's two ways to approach situations like this. Like, oh, this is a pretty tough nut to crack. Why would I ever do that? Why don't I go build an app or, chase that microwave success in life? Or you can look at it and say, this is a pretty complex project. If we can get good at it, I don't see many hindrances to us to continue to scale and grow. Like, it's going to be tough to do that. It's going to be tough to compete with us. That may be worth us leaning in and, putting the energy, the effort, and the discomfort in to solving it.
What would you say is your biggest hindrance to growth at this current point in your business?
Yeah. Developing and attracting leadership talent. Yep. Ultimately, leadership is a tough thing to hire for, in my experience. I can hire managers, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, mac and cheesy. But leaders, it's 90% who you are. Like we talked about earlier. Leadership, people follow leaders because of who they are 90% of the time, 10% what you can do. Managers, it's the opposite. Managers, it's like 90% your competency and ability to hold accountability. And then 10% are you someone that people are, at least not going to revolt against.
Damn. So, as we start I'm going to do a pilot thing here. As we start our descent. What haven't we touched on that you would feel might be important or that you'd really like to share that would be helpful?
I think a lot of your listeners are, in the field and they're contractors and they're working really hard and they found themselves owning their own business and it's hard. And they may feel alone. Like, why is this so difficult? Am I stupid? Like you were talking about earlier, is there, what is it? And I always like to tell people that if it feels hard, it's because it should be. This is hard and that's okay. And that's the number one piece of advice I give to people is it's okay if it feels hard. Entrepreneurism is it's an unbelievable opportunity for those who can do it well. And it's a very, very hard hurdle to climb to build an organization into a business that's beyond a lifestyle. And if it was easy, it would not be as valuable. Because more people would do it. And then you have the laws of supply and demand. And I just like to encourage people that if it feels really hard, it should be hard, and don't feel bad about it.
Well, and that's okay. It's okay that it's hard because
I could tell you the story. So when I was on my way to $1 million, I was driving my Hyundai Elantra around the Twin Cities Metro with garbage bags, piling into the front seat from the back seat, looking at all these other painting contractors and their massive trucks. And I'm like, is it only hard for me?
Right.
These guys look like they're crushing it. Now, little did I know that I was on the pathway to do something really special that was, very impressive, but it didn't feel impressive at the time. It felt like I was the only one struggling, and that's just not true. It's hard for everybody.
Yeah. I can tell you, having doing what I do now for many years, pretty much every business that you look at on the outside and you're impressed, once you lift the hood up, you realize there's some issues. One of the biggest issues with that guy that you're talking about driving the nice truck and all this other stuff is, he doesn't make any money. Let's just start with that. He works his ass off, doesn't know how to sell, doesn't know how to market. It's deposit check to deposit check, but he's got a nice truck, So
it's an easy lever to martyr themselves with. There's two levers that people martyr themselves with. One is their work. So they'll work 70 hours a week. The other is their profits. So maybe they don't work that hard, but they also don't make that much money. And to not work a ton and to be profitable requires a lot of accountability and excellence. And that's not something that everybody wants to lean into.
100%. Well, Jason, if somebody wants to reach out, they want to be a sub, they want to get to know you.
Don't reach out to me if you want to be a sub. Reach out to parispainting.com or whatever.
Where do you want people to reach out to you guys?
Yeah, I'm an elder millennial, so you can find me on social media. So if you go to Facebook or Instagram, search Jason Paris, you'll find me holding a paintbrush in my overalls. That's me. Did that for a family picture. You're probably looking up right now.
I'm actually taking a screenshot that I'm going to post on social media.
Okay.
So there
I
you
appreciate
go.
that.
So smile. There you go.
So yeah, I would say reach out to me on social media. As an elder millennial, that's the number one way that you'll engage with me. You can also shoot me an email. My email is jason@aleph-mgmt.com. That's ALEPH. And if you can spell that all right, you surpass that hurdle to be successful. Don't ever call me. I'm a millennial, like I said. I'll never answer.
Yeah, you'll never answer the phone.
You can text me, and we can start with that. But yeah, definitely don't call me.
I love how you just own it. It's beautiful. Yeah. Well, Jason, man, this was awesome. I was fired up to have this. Going into this, I was fired up. It was better than I thought it was going to be. Not like I thought it was going to be bad. I knew it was going to be really good. I just love the way you think and approach things. I think, even like tactically for the people listening, guys, pay attention to what he shared about working with his subs. He made their life easier. Yeah. Like, if Bob's Painting calls for them or Paris Painting calls for them, they're going to give Paris Painting preference in the schedule and all that other shit because he makes life easier for them, right? It's always about what's in it for them, add a ton of value, and give people a reason why they want to be on your team.
There's two big complaints I hear from painting contractors. One is I can't sell, right? Or two, I can't find any guys that want to work.
Yep.
Like that's literally your only job as a business owner is to find those two pieces, connect them together and have enough profit.
100%.
If you can't do that, like go work at the DMV. Like you should not be an entrepreneur. Like that's literally the two things that you are solving, which is why you'll make a profit.
100%, man. 100%. Jason, I appreciate you, man. Keep kicking ass. Anything we can ever do for you, let us know. And we're going to share this all over social. We'll drop your links and stuff in the show notes for people. And appreciate you for being part of the fight here today, man.
Absolutely, Tom. Appreciate the opportunity.
You got it, man. Guys, rate the show. Go check out Jason's stuff on social. Share this with another contractor, specifically another painting contractor. Level up that industry. And with that, you guys rock. We got to roll. We're out of here.